Tonight on the Late Debate, Tory revolt over Rishi Sunak's plan to stop the boats as his immigration minister walks out. Can the PM stop his party tearing itself apart?
We simply cannot have a situation where our ability to control our borders and stop people taking perilous journeys across the Channel is held up in endless litigation in our courts.
Also tonight, what chance of a record fourth London Olympics? As the Mayor eyes up another bid, we ask if the capital could still host thousands of athletes.
The IOC remember London very fondly. They think it was probably their most successful games ever.
And who's to blame for the cash crisis at Transport for London, as a big order for new trains is thrown into doubt? Hello and welcome to the Late Debate. It's been a bruising 24 hours for the Prime Minister, leading a party in revolt over how to deal with illegal migration and stop the boats. Rishi Sunak's authority took a direct hit after his immigration minister walked out, claiming the PM's plans weren't good enough. Sunak fought back and insisted his policy to revive the stalled Rwanda asylum scheme blocked every reason ever used to prevent flights. But will it be enough to stop the revolt from within his own party?
Claiming asylum. That's now blocked. Abuse of our modern slavery rules. Blocked. The idea that Rwanda isn't safe. Blocked. The risk of being sent to some other country. Blocked. And spurious human rights claims. You'd better believe that we've blocked those too because we're completely disapplying all the relevant sections of the Human Rights Act.
To discuss that and other issues in the capital are the Labour MP for Hornsey and Wood Green, Catherine West, who's a shadow foreign minister, the Housing Minister, Felicity Buchan, who's the MP for Kensington, and for the Liberal Democrats, former Transport Minister and London mayoral candidate Baroness Susan Kramer. Welcome, all of you. Felicity, is this just a desperate attempt by the Prime Minister to cling to power?
Oh, absolutely not. I am very confident that we've got a very, very strong plan here. The combination of our legal treaty with Rwanda and the bill that we introduced into Parliament today and we will vote on Tuesday, I am very confident that this is the solution. We've already had a lot of success. If you think about illegal migration, it has come down by 1/3 in the UK, when in Europe, it has gone up by 80%. Look at the success that we've had with returning Albanians. Those numbers are down by 90%. But this is the final leg, and I'm very confident.
And if it fails, should the Prime Minister quit?
I do not believe it is going to be to fail, but I'm very interested to hear from Catherine how the Labour Party is going to vote come Tuesday. But I'm very confident that we will succeed.
And how is the Labour Party going to vote on Tuesday? Presumably against.
Well, is there a minister in place? I mean, I think there might be a minister to take this bill through. But
Yes,
I've
we've
never
got two
been
ministers in place.
in a debate in the House of Commons when, standing at the dispatch box, the Secretary of State had no minister to actually take the bill through, which is how it was this time last night. So we've had a look at this once again. Looks as though, is it going to be a lawful thing? Can MPs be asked to vote for something which is not even lawful?
So you're not going to back it, are you?
No, we think that this is going to be yet another failed attempt. Even Rwanda is saying that they think that the UK government is going to push them too hard on human rights, which is really sad indictment of where we've got to under this 13 years of Tory misrule, broken public services, incompetent ministers, people walking out
But as you can
and
see, Labour has
fighting
no
like
plan.
rats in a sack over a policy which they cannot get right.
Susan, when Felicity was explaining why she thought the policy would work, you were shaking your head.
It's unworkable, it's immoral, and it's costing the taxpayer a fortune. But, you know, I don't care about infighting within the Tory party. Let them do what they want. But I care about them ripping up UK's reputation and our court system. People talk about this being a blow to international law. But there is a line in this which absolutely undermines the fundamental principle of British law. It orders the courts to treat as true that the Republic of Rwanda is a safe country. even where they know that is untrue. We have never before instructed our courts on a matter of fact to treat a known untruth as truth. And it is
Felicity,
absolutely central to
I
British
completely
values.
dispute that.
It's in the language. You may read it here right now.
We are respecting the UK
You may
courts.
read it
We
now.
are respecting the UK courts, and that is why we are putting this bill through Parliament. We have negotiated the treaty with Rwanda precisely because we read their judgment and we are complying with their judgment. This is
you
all
are trying
compliant.
to find a way to manoeuvre around
No,
their
not
judgment.
at all. If you
and
heard-
you are doing it by something that is so fundamental to the underlying constitutional
If you
structure
heard
of the
Lord
country
Sumption
that
on
it
the
is
radio,
completely un-British.
If you heard Lord Sumption on the radio the other day, he said that he thought all of this was watertight. I am very, very confident that it is
Catherine, could I-
watertight and it is compliant.
Being
Catherine,
watertight doesn't mean
And
that it
compliant.
holds British values.
And compliant.
Catherine, if Rishi Sunak succeeds in getting a flight to Rwanda before the general election, that causes you a problem, doesn't it, in Labour?
Do you mean with another Home Secretary or without one? Because so far, not one asylum seeker has been there, only 3 Home Secretaries. We've had Priti Patel, we've had Suella Braverman, who, by the way, I heard on the radio this morning, Suella Braverman basically defying the Prime Minister. She's meant to be part of the team, but it seems as though she's like the 5th column or something. It's like watching 2 parties in the government, and it's just utter chaos and confusion.
But what does Labour do about the Rwanda policy if it succeeds in getting a flight to Rwanda before the election? Do you still scrap it?
We need the Home Office to be functional. Any constituency MP will tell you that the Home Office is broken.
But
It's
what is
been
Labour's
broken.
plan?
We are going to employ proper caseworkers. We're going to get the backlog down, as we did when we were in government. The backlog was low. It was manageable.
But you won't deport
And-
asylum seekers to a third country.
And we will
Well,
not
Keir
be
Sta-
backing the bill on Tuesday because we think it's the 3rd time in which the government will be bringing a bill which we have serious concerns about whether it's legally watertight or not.
But Keir
And
Starmer
costs a
even
fortune.
wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying that he opposed the deportation of foreign criminals, and that was held up at PMQs.
I think that's
the deportation of foreign criminals.
That is a complete red herring. What we're talking about here is the government spending £140 million on a failed scheme, sending more Home Secretaries than asylum seekers abroad, and not being straight with the British people that we will have to have Rwandan asylum seekers back to the UK in exchange, which is
Can we
what
talk
it
about
says in
legal
the
migration?
contract.
Because there are new curbs announced there. Do you all worry that a city like London, which relies on migrant workers for its hospitality industry and for the care sector, is not going to be able to find enough people?
On the care sector, I'm deeply worried because every single year the government agencies hand money back to the Treasury because they cannot run a proper apprenticeship scheme for care workers. They talk the talk, but they never actually deliver a proper apprenticeship scheme. The money that is put aside in the budget does not get spent on bringing workers who are based in London into the care work
How
system.
does the government address the shortage of needed workers?
This government is very focused on empowering British people back into jobs, and that's what Mel Stride is doing in the Department of Work and Pensions. And that is giving people jobs, and it's giving them ownership and autonomy over their lives.
Well, in that
and
case,
what we-
why has there
what
been
we are doing-
700,000 people who've
What-
arrived in Britain in
what-
the last 12
what
months?
we are doing
700,000.
is we are adjusting the legal migration system.
You've lost
we,
control
we
of
do,
it. You've
no,
lost
we
control.
need talent, but we are adjusting it. And just coming back to the lack of Labour plans, all Labour is prepared to say that they will do is sign a deal with the EU, which will require them to take 100,000 migrants from the EU.
Susan,
I'm really worried about people in care homes and people who need care in their home. We're already got a desperate shortage. Those are the most vulnerable people. You only have to listen to the COVID inquiry and see how cavalier the government was about people in care homes or people who needed care in their homes in the time of the pandemic to understand that they are so low on the priority that they have not been properly serviced by this immigration and by the workforce plan policies. It's a crisis we have today.
I don't think you can say then when more than 100,000 care workers have come into the country.
But you are now trying to bring in measures to discourage those care workers
because
they will not be
bring
able to
their
bring their
dependents.
families. So people who have kids, it's going to be churn. They'll be here for 3 months, then they go, then they change, then they chop. It's very difficult and it's an expensive process for the care homes to constantly have to apply for new visas. It is designed to cut the number of incoming carers very seriously, and the sufferers will be once again the people in the care homes and the people who need care in their own homes.
I think this government is very, very focused on doing the right thing by our elderly. Look at the triple lock. We've brought in more than 100,000 care workers. We're looking to do the right thing, but we also have British people that we can train up for these jobs.
Okay.
This government is focused with fighting with itself, and you can see that every single day in Parliament with ministers walking out and the chaos and confusion, introducing last-minute plans where there's been zero consultation with local authorities who have to contract for thousands of carers every day for the most vulnerable, zero consultation with the care companies which have to provide staff, and zero consultation with MPs.
Felicity, let's pause for a moment because I want to move on, because the Olympics could be coming back to London for a record 4th time after Sadiq Khan hinted the Games could return. With ready-built venues and a track record hosting large events, the capital would be a serious contender. A new bid would still come with new problems, not least where to house the 10,000 athletes after previous accommodation was sold off. But one former advisor to the Mayor may have a solution. 11 years after London 2012, a new generation of athletes are making the most of the Olympic legacy. The London Aquatics Centre was one of the purpose-built venues designed to last, which also means it could be recycled as a future Olympic facility.
If I'm re-elected, I'll be setting up a committee to explore whether we can bring back the Olympics to London in either 2036 or 2040.
Sadiq Khan first floated the idea of another London Olympics during his election campaign in 2021, and he still believes in the idea.
I think the key thing is to recognise the possibility of a green Olympics coming to London, because we've already got the infrastructure. So we're looking into the feasibility of this, and as soon as we've got some news, I'll of course share it with you.
It might be a distant memory, but for millions of Londoners, the summer of 2012 was a golden time. The weather was kind, the transport network behaved, and the medals rolled in. The Olympic Park felt like a magic place. And in the park today, there was plenty of enthusiasm for the Games to return.
I think the Olympics should come back to London. I think it's good for the country, I think it's good for the economy.
More people's going to come to the stadium, it's going to be good. It's going to be good for the area, bring it back.
Yeah, it'll just be a lot of culture brought back into the country.
The 2012 Games cost more than £9 billion, but that sort of spending is now regarded as extravagant. Instead, the International Olympic Committee wants sustainable games, which could make London well placed. The London Stadium is home to West Ham, but the running track can be reinstated. Other venues like the Velodrome are available. However, the Athletes' Village is now home to almost 3,000 families, so can't be reused. But one former City Hall advisor thinks the answer is Old Oak Common, next to the new HS2 station.
You could use the opportunity of a new Games to underwrite more investment in infrastructure there, and ultimately to build some fantastic new housing there. So I think that's actually, a real plus for a bid, the possibility of adding an exciting regeneration and housing opportunity.
The IOC has yet to name a host city for the 2036 Olympics and Paralympics. But realistically, London's best hope might be 2040 or 2044. Susan, does the idea of another Olympics in London excite you?
Oh, I would absolutely love it. Do you remember? I mean, the level of happiness, the bonhomie, the welcome, that's the international view that we presented to the world. Welcoming, strong, that's cooperative. I think it was a joyous time for a lot of people. And frankly, in these times where everything feels bad and breaking, to have something like that to look forward to, I think would be really energising. This time, though, I'd like to make more focus on the legacy in terms of sports across the country. That's, I think, been the one weakness.
Is there an appetite, Felicity, in the government for this?
Well, I've got to say, I think that the 2012 Olympics were amazing, and I was very, very lucky that I got return tickets and I was able to see Usain Bolt win the 200 metres, which was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm very, very supportive of sporting events in the UK and in London. But I do wish that the Mayor of London would also focus on the basics. We've got huge problems at the moment with police, with fire, with housing, with crime. So why does he always just focus on the glitzy projects rather than on the basics?
Nothing wrong with a bit of ambition, though, is there?
That Londoners need. Londoners need the basics to work, and they're not working under Sadiq Khan.
Catherine, when Sadiq Khan first suggested this, it was dismissed by his opponents as an election stunt. Would a Labour government back it?
Well, I think if you have a combination of a Labour government and a Labour mayor, as many will remember how much progress was made on transport, on public services, on housing, on health, on all the basics once we had that combination. Because London's been starved of public funding for years now, for 13 long years. Boroughs, TfL, they've all sort of had to make do. And people are desperate, not just for the investment, but desperate for the good times again. And I think we do need a fresh start. We need a Labour government, and we need to have both the investment for the day-to-day, but also the vision that we can do this again as a great
Londoners
city.
desperate for the good times again, Felicity?
The Mayor of London has got a budget of over £30 billion and he chronically mismanages it. It is appalling, the failures. If you look at housing completions, he's missing his targets in every year bar his first year. If you look at housing starts in the last quarter, absolutely appalling. Knife crime going up. We do not need Sadiq Khan. We need Susan Hall as Mayor of London.
But is it wrong for the Mayor to have an ambition like the Olympics in the future?
Oh, not at all. I think ambition is very, very important. I'm all for that.
Would a Conservative government back it?
Well, Susan Hall has already said that she's in favour of the Commonwealth Games coming in 2026, so which is much, much earlier. I cannot commit government here tonight. But clearly, we are very, very pro large sporting events.
Susan, you were a Transport Minister just after the Olympics.
Yes.
How was it that transport worked then but doesn't seem to now?
Well, I'm a great deal of focus. And I think one of the points has been made that because I was on the Board of Transport for London from 2000 onwards, and so was very involved in the whole revival of transport in London. I mean, commissioning Crossrail with now the Elizabeth line and a whole lot of the upgrades and stopping the public-private partnership, which was really dragging the whole tube network down. But I mean, that's the way you do it. You make sure that you really do the capital infrastructure. And if you do that, then you end up with a system that works, and we have brilliant staff, brilliant people timetabling all of that. So I am shocked these days when I go onto Transport for London, and so often my train is delayed, there's a problem with signalling, and you can just see the deterioration and the neglect that's happened, particularly since COVID. And I'm very worried about the absence of funding for TfL.
One thing that Transport for London said this week is that it's facing another £500 million black hole. It's got the begging bowl out again for money from the government. Who's to blame? Sadiq Khan?
Well, I think the thing to understand is that the fares which we all pay when we jump on the tube, that's going for the day-to-day spending. But in terms of some of the big-ticket items, for example, the Piccadilly line in my patch...
This is why the money is needed. It's for the big infrastructure projects,
yes.
the capital investment in the future.
Exactly, the 500 million here or whatever. And I completely accept that rail is needed in the north, etc. But just think about this wonderful investment in the workers in Goole who actually fix some of the tubes up in Yorkshire, and that is paying for jobs and apprenticeships up there. But in the end, it's my constituents who benefit here, and they're actually paying for it when they go into work. They're paying for it long, long term, and it's a win-win because a lot of the contracts which TfL let, because it's a big city and we have the population, there's actually a real benefit in other places where they're actually either manufacturing trains or doing the upholstery on trains or fixing various or doing the repairs and
there
maintenance.
is a solid argument for investing in London, but isn't the problem at the moment that all these funding agreements for Transport for London are short term?
Yes.
They last 6 months, 9 months. It's time for something much bigger, much longer.
I think that the problem is that the Mayor of London is just chronically mismanaging our transport network. I look at the tube stations in my constituency, which my constituents use. Holland Park Tube Station, you can turn up there, you have no idea whether it will be open or not on the day because of staffing shortages. This government has given TfL £6.5 billion from 2020. The settlement in this financial year is over £1 billion. That is enough money for the infrastructure investments, for £3.5 billion of infrastructure investments. The Mayor of London is also allowed to retain £1 billion of business rates. If you want TfL to work, there's one way to do it, and it's to kick out Sadiq Khan and get Susan Hall as Mayor of London.
The government came in, the coalition government came in and cut back everything for London, whether it was housing, whether it was health, whether it was our hospitals, whether it was our schools, and we still haven't recovered. And then COVID came along and, of course, took out the day-to-day spending, which was keeping everything going. And therefore, there is a black hole because, obviously, during COVID, there was 2 whole years where the tubes had to run to get nurses into hospitals because of COVID. But obviously, there wasn't the fees coming in because none of us were on the train. We were at home doing Zoom. And, of course, just let me finish.
Yes.
And so, of course, we've had this problem, which has ended up with this black hole, and the government has to accept that for us to have a vibrant city which creates the tax base, and as a London MP, you will accept that the tax base is very important that comes through London employment. Therefore, we do actually need people in order to keep our productivity up to a modern country. We need to get people from A to B, and unless the government invests, we are going to go backwards.
Susan, how do you sort out this problem of the short-termism?
Well, you stop it. I mean, you need to have long-term planning. I mean, this government does it all the time. I deal, on Treasury issues. We always get something called a long-term economic plan, which is basically a 3-monther if you're lucky. You need long-term planning, particularly for big infrastructure. It has to be utterly reliable. People have to know they can commission new trains, fight for a good price. It's going to come and be delivered. It won't be cancelled halfway through. And you need to be able to plan ahead. That's how you do good infrastructure. And in a sense, Catherine is absolutely right. If London's transport system works, you get economic growth in London, and that money goes and provides public services and opportunity across the whole of the country, because the majority of the money that is raised through London taxes actually goes outside of London. So it's absolutely critical.
Felicity, I'm afraid we've run out of time. I can see you're very eager to jump in there, and it's a subject that we will discuss in great depth in a later programme, I'm sure. But that's all for tonight. Thank you to all my guests, Catherine West, Felicity Buchan and Susan Kramer. We'll be back in the new year. Till then, good night and thank you for watching.